Hi, my name is Danielle. When my brother's wedding came, I never got an invitation. The mailbox stayed empty. Instead, my parents told me, "Sorry, dear, this event is for family." Apparently, I wasn't the kind of family that counted. So I packed my bags, not for a wedding, but for an escape. What they didn't know was that while they were erasing me, the truth was about to catch up with them in a way they would never forget. Growing up in our house was like living in a museum dedicated to my brother, Kyle. The walls of our hallway were a shrine to his achievements. A certificate for best attendance, a blurry photo from a soccer game. Everything was framed. My achievements, on the other hand, were ghosts. Before we dive into this, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and tell me in the comments where are you watching from. I remember winning the state science fair in 10th grade. I'd built a working solar-powered water purifier and came home with a large blue ribbon. I set the trophy on the kitchen counter, my heart pounding with excitement. "Mom! Dad! Look!" I said. My mother glanced over from the stove. "Oh, that's nice, dear," she said, before immediately turning to my father. "Mark, did you hear? Kyle got the lead in the school play." The rest of the evening was spent discussing Kyle's incredible talent. My trophy sat on the counter until I quietly moved it to my room a few days later. It was never mentioned again. This was the pattern of my life. I earned a full academic scholarship to college, and they called it practical. Kyle decided to attend a private art school with a massive tuition, and they took out a second mortgage. "He needs this to follow his dream," my father would say. My need, it seemed, was to be invisible. So when Kyle got engaged, I knew what to expect. At their engagement party, I felt more like a hired helper than a daughter, refilling drinks and clearing plates. I listened to them discuss wedding plans and guest lists, telling myself it didn't matter. But a small hopeful part of me thought, a wedding is different. They can't exclude me from his wedding. Weeks turned into months. I saw the social media posts of dress shopping and bachelor parties. The wedding date grew closer. Every day I checked the mail. Every day there was nothing. The empty mailbox became a symbol of my place in the family, a void. I was beginning to understand I was being deliberately left out. The final insult came with the quiet cruelty of a phone call. It was a Tuesday evening, the week of the wedding. I was microwaving a frozen dinner when my phone rang. It was my mother. My heart gave a stupid little jump, hoping the invitation got lost. "Danielle, hi," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "Listen, honey, I wanted to talk to you about Saturday." My breath caught. "Okay," I whispered. "We've been talking, your father and I, and we just feel, well, we feel it's for the best." She paused, letting the manufactured sympathy hang in the air. "Don't be upset, Danielle. This event is really for family." The words were cold and sharp. For family. I couldn't speak. I am her daughter. I am his sister. How was I not family? "It's a very intimate affair," she continued, filling my stunned silence with excuses. "And you know, there's been some tension, and we just want Kyle and Sarah to have a perfect day, with no distractions. It's better if you don't come. A distraction." That's what I was. I finally found my voice. "What tension, Mom? I haven't done anything." "Oh, don't be dramatic, Danielle," she sighed, her sweetness gone. "You just have a way of making things difficult. This is a happy day." I felt a cold wave wash over me. It was the moment I realized their perception of me was set in stone. I was the serious, difficult daughter. Kyle was the happy, celebrated son. "I understand," I said, the words coming out automatically. It was easier than fighting, easier than showing them how deeply they had just cut me. "Good. I knew you would," she said cheerfully. "Talk to you soon, honey." She hung up. I slowly slid down the kitchen cabinets until I was sitting on the cold linoleum floor. I had been officially disowned from a day that was supposed to be about family. That night, I didn't just cry. It felt like my whole body was collapsing inward. Every memory of being overlooked, every brushed-aside achievement, came flooding back as one long, crushing story of my own erasure. I was a ghost in my own family. I cried until morning. My head throbbed and my eyes were swollen. Just as I thought I couldn't feel any worse, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my father. I fumbled for it, a pathetic spark of hope in my chest. The message was cold and blunt. "Don't make this harder. Respect Kyle's day," that was it. Just a command to swallow my pain and disappear quietly. My father wasn't trying to fix the wound. He was telling me to stop bleeding on his clean floor. That text broke something in me. The last flicker of hope died. They were a united front. They had chosen their narrative, and I had no part in it. I lay on the floor, the tears gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. They expected me to respect their decision and fade away, but respect is earned, and they had just lost every last bit of mine. I was done being the quiet, understanding daughter. Instead of drowning in humiliation, I decided to swim. I walked to my laptop and opened a travel website. I just knew I had to get away. My eyes landed on a last-minute flight to Santa Barbara, California. The images showed sunny coastlines and calm blue water. It looked like peace. I booked it without a second thought. It left on Saturday morning, the morning of the wedding. On the morning of the ceremony, I woke up before dawn. Social media was already full of pre-wedding posts. My mother getting her hair done, Kyle and his groomsmen in tuxedos. The caption from my father read, "A proud day. Getting my son ready for the biggest moment of his life." I looked at the photos, then at my plane ticket on the counter. The familiar sting of hurt was there, but it was fading, replaced by a quiet, determined power. They were having their day. Now I was going to have mine. I turned off my phone, left it on the kitchen table, and walked out the door. As the plane lifted off the runway, I looked out at the city shrinking below. For the first time, I felt like I was flying towards something, instead of just running away. Santa Barbara felt like a different world, smelling of salt and flowers. I spent the first day just walking along the beach, feeling the tension in my shoulders begin to melt. That evening, sitting alone in a small cafe, I decided to check my work email, needing a reminder of the part of my life where I had value. Buried among the usual updates was an email that made me sit up straight. Regarding your research on photovoltaic energy storage. It was from a venture capital firm. The sender, David Chen, said his team had been quietly following my published research. They were impressed and believed it had significant commercial potential. The email ended with a simple question. "We happen to be in Santa Barbara for a conference this week. Would you be available to meet for a coffee?" My heart pounded. Shaking, I typed back a short reply saying I was available. The next morning, I was sitting across from David and his partner, Maria Flores. They were warm, direct, and genuinely excited about my research. They treated me like a peer, asking questions that showed they understood my work. For an hour, we talked about science, and I forgot about the wedding, my parents, and the crushing weight of their rejection. I was just a scientist, talking about the work I loved. Finally, David leaned forward. "Danielle," he said, "we believe your technology could change the energy industry. We want to fund you. We want to build a company around your research, with you leading it." Maria slid a leather folder across the table. "This is a preliminary proposal," she said. "We're prepared to offer $60 million in initial backing." I stared at the folder, unable to process the number. $60 million. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a contract, a formal letter of intent. It was real. While my family was cutting me out for not being good enough, these strangers were looking at me and seeing a $60 million future. For the first time, I wasn't just a sister or a daughter. I was seen. That evening, the signed contract lay on my hotel table. Out of morbid curiosity, I logged into social media. The screen filled with images from my brother's perfect day. The reception was in full swing. There they all were, my entire family, smiling and raising champagne glasses in a grand hall. My sister-in-law had posted a picture of the whole family together, a perfect portrait with a gaping hole where I should have been. I looked from the glowing screen to the crisp, dark ink on the contract. The pain was a dull echo, but it was no longer the only thing I felt. They were in that ballroom toasting a single moment. I was in this quiet room holding the key to my future. I closed the app. They could have their party. I had my work to do. 2 weeks later, the press release went out. The story was picked up everywhere. Young scientist Danielle Myers launches $60 million startup to revolutionize clean energy. My face was next to the headline. Friends and relatives started calling, all saying the same thing. "Congratulations. Your parents must be so proud." They all assumed my family had been my biggest supporters. The irony was suffocating. Then my mother called. "Danielle, honey," she said, her voice frantic. "We saw the news. $60 million? "That's right, Mom," I said calmly. "But why didn't you tell us? We had no idea. We're getting so many calls." She wasn't congratulating me. She was panicking, scrambling to rewrite history. "I've been busy," I replied simply. There was a long pause. I could hear her trying to craft a new narrative where she was the proud, supportive mother. But it was too late. I had built this on my own, not just without their help, but in spite of their dismissal. Months later, I flew back for my grandmother's 80th birthday party. I was no longer the same person who had cried on her kitchen floor. When I walked into the hall, the room quieted. I was no longer invisible, Danielle. I was Danielle, the CEO. My parents rushed to greet me with wide, artificial smiles. I was polite but distant. Later, Kyle and his new wife Sarah came over. Sarah launched into a long story about their extravagant honeymoon in Greece, a clear performance to reclaim the spotlight. Just as she finished, my great-uncle leaned over from the next table. He had a copy of Forbes magazine in his hand, open to an article with my face on the page. "Danielle," he said, his voice booming across the suddenly quiet room. "I was just reading this. How does it feel to be one of Forbes' top 30 under 30 innovators?" The air went still. Sarah's smile froze. My parents looked like they had been turned to stone. Every eye was on me. The success they had ignored was now the headline of the event. I looked at my great-uncle, then at the faces of my family. I saw shock, envy, and a deep, profound regret. They had gambled that I would always be nothing, and they had lost. I took a slow sip of my coffee. "It feels good," I said, my voice clear and steady. "It feels good to finally be seen." The words were simple, but everyone understood their weight. My mother's face crumpled. My father looked at the floor. Their silence, the weapon they had used against me for so long, had finally cost them everything. I finished my coffee, said goodbye to my grandmother, and left. I didn't need their apologies. My worth was never tied to their approval. I just needed to see it for myself. So, I have to ask you, if you were me, would you forgive them? Or would you let their silence be the final word between you? Drop your answer in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.